the classic door clunk from, but it's not too bad. That's pretty solid. Howdy, welcome back to the Addicted Motors YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a kind of a quick walk around and comparison of two iconic European sedans. Probably two of the most recognizable four-door automobiles produced in the last 40 years, let's say. My 1993 Volvo 240 and my 1984 Mercedes-Benz W123 300D. So let's kick it off. All right, so both these vehicles have been featured on my channel multiple times. The 240 is a recent acquisition, which will be sold. I haven't marked for sale yet, but it is for sale. And I've recently, unfortunately, decided that I probably have to get rid of the W123. So that's not something that I felt like I was going to do, but I just don't drive it enough. And it hurts to kind of let it sit. I've got it at the house under a car cover, but it's just not, doesn't make a lot of sense, in my daily, not so much commutes, but in my daily life to continue to drive this car. So I'm kind of unfortunately making a decision that I should sell it. But while I have them two together, I did want to, not dive too deep, but just kind of compare these two models because of their historical significance and, the fact that they are automotive icons that everyone can relate to or has a story for. So both of these cars, they're both hero cars. Most people don't really, in the car world, find themselves at a crossroad between the two of them. You're either a Volvo 240 guy or you're a W123 guy. There's not a lot of intersection there. And once you put the cars back to back, they are really quite similar. They're both economical in the sense that they were not really branded as an upmarket choice. They are very high quality versions of established manufacturers, semi-entry level models. At the time, obviously, they're quite pricey, but they're both cars that have really withstood the test of time, and one, are completely recognizable, two, dead reliable, and three, rising in value and have cult followings. So, to put them next to each other, you can definitely see the takeaways and why there's a lot of car guys and gals there that kind of build their personal brands off one or the other. So let's get into styling. Brick or box or brick, pick one. Growing up, it featured on movies, television, flicks all over the place. These cars were fairly popular. Anytime there was something that was featured on the East Coast, or there's, obviously, movies that depict both of these all over the place. Not so much as a hero car, but definitely in the background, they're extremely iconic and recognizable. The 240 is one that I think was a car that was not really appreciated by non-enthusiasts for a while, but has since kind of come into its own element. It's extremely high quality car, Volvo, of course. Semi-advanced, it's obviously an older platform. The last model year is 1993, at least in North America. I can't remember when the initial version came out, probably the late 70s, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But again, a heavily modified, heavily revised, platform that, was changed slightly over the years, but kind of retained the same general shape and design, and was just continually improved upon. The 1993 being the latest model, at least with this one, I've got power windows, SRS. There's no traction control, but it does have, I think they updated the shifter gate, heated seats, blah, blah, blah. It's been slightly modified, but not to the point where, it's a different car. There's a lot of features and a lot of little details once you start walking around a 240 that may not be, initially apparent because most of them aren't in that good of condition. This one I think was slightly more optioned, but you can see, little things like the add-on mud flaps. This car has heated mirrors and heated seats because, Swedish car. But then all the extra bumper protection, molding, trim. I mean, look at this. You've got a mud flap, you've got a plastic bumper, you've got a bumper protector, and you've got this kind of chrome molding to kind of probably help with the aerodynamics a little bit. I mean, that's not cheap stuff, and in comparison, this would probably be a bit of more of an expensive options. Even the front bumper, you've got this additional aerodynamic, probably the point of that was molding all along it. And again, it's not, it doesn't have that base model feel, and that's what I think is different with these older cars than the newer cars. It feels expensive, right? Not so much expensive, more solid. I mean, again, obviously a Volvo 240 is not where you're getting the classic door clunk from, but it's not too bad. That's pretty solid. Switching over to the box opposed to the brick, same basic design features. The W123 is a little bit wider. It's a little more proportionate. You can see the Volvo has the at least on the door panels in the back, I don't know if it's due to the design or safety, these are pretty thick, heavy doors. Volvo kind of built a reputation on safety. And I don't know if that is part of the design language or part of the safety factor, but it's got the roof line and the width of the cabin is slightly more narrow than the W123, which is, a little bit more proportionate. I think, obviously, the W123, in my opinion, is the better looking car, but they are just two completely different beasts. I think the proportions on the W123 are absolutely perfect and probably really epitomize what the perfect proportions of a car should be. Minus the US spec bumpers, I could obviously do without them. But other than that, it is a very good looking car. It's very proportionate and appealing. And again, this is another design that was carried through the mid 70s to the mid 80s. I think that this is an 84, so pretty much the last model year for the W23 chassis before they changed over, I think, to the 190s and whatnot. But again, quick walk around. Obviously, you get the big 80s crash bumpers, US spec headlights, which I don't mind on these. Chrome power mirror, manual mirror for the driver's side, power mirror for the passenger side. Both of these have massive trunks. I need a different key to open up right now. But again, I think these are both survivor cars. Both are pretty rust-free. Both are pretty slow. You get a 2.3 gas inline four-cylinder, and you have the OM617 turbocharged turbo diesel in the Mercedes. And again, performance is nothing to write home about, but once they're up to speed, they both cruise absolutely perfectly. And they both feel like they've been, built with extreme quality and have obviously lasted this long without any major issues. All right, jumping into the inside, again, form over function. Both of these cars have manually adjusted seats. Both of them have manual headlights, power windows, functional stereo systems. Now that I've got the power antenna going in the W123, it makes it, at least radio reception a lot better. A couple sets of keys. You've got, everything you need. It's sparse, it's clean, it's concise, it's no BS, and it's basically a nice place to be. Plenty of foot room. The back seat in this car is really in good condition. Same with the headliner. That's, this car is it has a lot going for it condition wise. It's not perfect at all. But as far as condition wise, it's pretty extreme. And then you have that iconic door clunk that these things are known for. Some of them might need to be adjusted a little bit, but that's something I'll deal with at another time. All right, some more interesting details. Again, these cars are fairly advanced by modern and non-modern standards as well. Both have four-wheel disc brakes. Both have, at least the Volvo has a solid rear. The Mercedes has independent rear suspension. Again, both are in decent condition. And, again, modern Tacomas don't even have four-wheel disc brakes. And these tanks, for how old they are, I mean, it is pretty wild to see, the type of technology that was used and how it still holds up to this day, which is pretty neat. 4-speed automatic transmissions, nothing to write home about there. What else? Again, they're very similar packages, very similar and very different. You know, the 240 is probably a little bit easier to deal with on a day-to-day basis, just because it is gas, it's not diesel. It is a little bit more of a runaround than the 300 or the W123. You know, it's a little bit more of a dated design. I mean, they're both dated design, but this one, you know, it definitely blends in a little bit better. They're both super easy to work on. Every part you could find or want to find for these is either available online or available at a local junkyard or scrapyard. Everything I found with the Volvo was easily available for under $5, and it really made the repair process. I even fixed the inoperable rear brake lights by replacing the red signal bulb out indicator, which, you know, that was a pain in the butt because, you know, without brake lights or without a good plan going forward, it really makes the car not drivable. So easy fix, just took a little bit of research, but all the material, all the parts, everything's available online, and they really make great first cars. Now, these things used to be $1,000 or $500, you know, everyone's first car, but they've been everyone's first car for the past 30, 40 years now, which makes the wealth of knowledge associated with the vehicles pretty diverse. And, you know, but at the same time, you're getting priced out of it being a first car now. Now it's more of a quirky collector's item, and that's probably why I have them. So yeah, you know, again, times change, tastes change, and I think the moral of the story is these cars are very much back in style. All right. So let's take the 240 for a spin. Again, this is a lovely little car to drive. It doesn't feel old. It is old. Oh, look, a little bit of wheel spin. No tack. But it absolutely kind of just scoots and gets up and go. Let me close the window here because the AC is on, which is amazing in a car that's just a couple years younger than I am, that's still functioning. So yeah, humming along 40, 50 miles an hour. Comfortable cloth seats, which, you know, I wish that more manufacturers would bring back cloth seats these days. Cloth heated seats, mind you. And it just absolutely floats along. It doesn't feel like a small car. It's not a small car by today's standard. You know, it definitely has a slightly smaller cabin than most, you know, modularly styled new cars. But the overall length of it is, you know, it's long. It's huge, you know, which is crazy that it was the smaller model back in the day. Yeah, brakes, power, everything is fine. You know, you can see why this car, you know, was a favorite for first cars, households, families, you know, as third cars, first cars. You know, it just has, you know, that ability and that feel like it's going to go forever. And, you know, it's a cliche, but they kind of do. Like I said, they're easy to fix. Parts are available. There's great access. You can get under them. You can work on them. You know, it's just a very user-friendly platform. And it's also, it's rear-wheel drive. So, you know, you can have a little fun in it if the weather conditions and the road conditions and the dirt conditions or the snow conditions allow. That adds a little bit of an unknown and a little bit of some spark to this platform. You know, I've seen guys drift them, you know, do all sorts of stuff. You know, there is options to make this platform more fun, which is better than some other front-wheel drive platforms that don't offer that same potential. You know, these cars and older cars like this are all about potential, and this one definitely embodies that. So yeah, that's the 240 in a nutshell. We'll jump into the W126 and take that for a spin as well. Really fun, peppy little car. Good brakes too. All right, little change of scenery in the 300D. Haven't driven this car in over 3 or 4 weeks. Started right up. That, again, unlike the Volvo, well, not unlike the Volvo, I haven't had the Volvo that long to really determine how good the parasitic drain or not is. But this car is very reliable. and it's boringly reliable. Since I purchased it, I've changed the wheels and tires, the oil filter, obviously, the fuel filter, the air filter, the secondary fuel filter, and that's really about it. Nothing else really needed attention, and it's been great, really, ever since. Cabin is definitely more has a more of an attractive layout. Definitely, I know the Mercedes interpretation of how a well laid out, ergonomically friendly cabin space has been kind of a time tested and true equation that they still reminisce even today. It looks like, even modern Mercedes have gone back to these circular gauges and HVAC ports. It's interesting to see some of the old designs in the newer models. But again, as far as drivability goes, again, these have been a favorite of new and old drivers, classics, and, project cars for, most people's memorable and foreseeable past and future. I mean, it's a staple of a car. And the more you drive one and the more you live with one, the more it becomes apparent. There's lots of little features and driving, quirks and not so much quirks that really set this thing apart. Little details like the chrome mirrors, or even the chromed door handles, or even this one with the red interior and the contrast with the off-white kind of taxi cab color paint job. There's just a lot of little things that make this car really stand out and make it a joy. And now that I'm driving it, I don't really want to sell it again, but that's just how this pans out. But as far as drivability goes, this one, it has AC. I haven't tried to do anything to it or try to get it working. So right now it has no AC, but it's fine. All the windows work. The sunroof works. Again, I repaired the antenna, so radio works, heat works, and there's not a whole lot to tinker on, which is good and bad in its own right. Super slow. Obviously, it could probably use some tuning of the mechanical linkages that are involved with the throttle. These cars have a lot of vacuum issues. I don't think this one suffers from anything but the locks, which is fairly common. Again, I don't lock these cars really anyway, so it hasn't really affected my use of it. But if you live in a city, it might be something worth taking the door panels off and diagnosing. But at the moment, for what I use these cars for, it's absolutely fine. And again, very, very similar driving feel to the 240. I've got a little more play in the steering. Both are very slow. Both have very good brakes, feel very solid, and don't really drive like, 30 and 40-year-old vehicles. Look, there's its sister 240. Almost the same color, same peeling paint and whatnot. But again, that's what these cars are. They are they're male, female, enthusiast, non-enthusiast accessories because of how they look and what people think when they see someone driving it. There's no one that's ever been mad at someone driving a 240 or 300D, Mercedes or Volvo. And that kind of speaks to the nature and the ethos of these two cars. So if you're lucky enough to own one, you probably know what I'm talking about. And, if it's a tough decision if you want to go between the two. So you may be asking yourself, what's the conclusion with this comparison? And unfortunately, there is no 100% right answer. The cars are extremely similar in, their purpose, in their design, in not so much their looks, but in their overall presentation. That's really hard to make that particular call. They both fall in that same category of reliable, iconic, you could even call them hipster, automotive, solidly built icons that are relatively easy to maintain and can be found at a relatively decent price, even in today's market. So to pick a definitive winner is hard. if I was going to drive it every day, I would pick the 240 just because of fuel economy, a little bit more pep in traffic, and I wouldn't feel bad, and I would feel less obligated, I guess, to keep it in pristine condition because there's relatively few of them in such condition. With the W123, I would more keep it for the purposes I have it now. It's a toy. It's something to tinker on. It's collectible. It looks great, and it's relatively easy to maintain. So it really is to each his own. You know, there are two factions in the car world. Most of the time, Volvo and Mercedes don't really intersect or are cross-shopped in the categories of this age of car. But, you know, it really is the eye of the beholder. And to drive them both back to back is pretty special, especially because a lot of people haven't driven 240s. Most have 240 experiences, but honestly, that's the first one I've ever driven a 240. Personally, I've always, you know, chose a 760 or a wagon instead. But, you know, you have to sample every car, and that's kind of my foray into that world. So if you got any comments, I'm sure I didn't go into too much detail. Obviously, it's tough to nail all the points. If you're a 240 guy, comment below. If you're a W123 guy, drop a comment and give me some feedback. And again, the 240 will be for sale. I'm still debating on whether or not I can sell this beautiful car. So yeah, let me know. As always, have a good one, and please subscribe if you want to see some more content, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.